Jecka wakes up, experiencing the effects of Percocet and craving Adderall and cigarettes. Upon discovering shattered family photos, they learn their parents are getting divorced. Tension escalates between Jecka and their father, with threats of violence and eviction. The father's behavior becomes more aggressive and controlling, referring to himself as daddy and demanding compliance. Despite this abusive behavior, the father is shown donating to charity, highlighting a complex and contradictory character. Jecka reluctantly agrees to find employment to appease their father and avoid potential consequences. Jecka struggles to find employment due to the recession. They encounter Jeffrey, who works at a bookstore, but refuses to help them get hired. The conversation turns to gender bias in the workforce and the challenges of finding employment. Jecka considers applying at Hot Topic, hoping to find a goth work girlfriend. They discuss the store's atmosphere and potential improvements. Jecka encounters a hostile individual, possibly a former schoolmate, who threatens them. They discuss the underreporting of crimes against women. Another character suggests working at a strip club, but Jecka rejects the idea. The conversation shifts to a potential job at FYE, where they witness an unpleasant interaction with a customer, illustrating the challenges of retail work. The conversation begins with frustration about having to work to help with bills. There's discussion about buying CDs at a bookstore, with one person questioning why anyone still buys CDs in the modern era. The other explains it's to avoid potential hacking issues with digital accounts. The conversation touches on how computer literacy can be weaponized against women. One person mentions buying Beanie Seagull's discography and a chemistry set for making homemade pop rocks. The discussion continues about using a paycheck to help with bills versus buying shoes. There's a brief exchange about a potential romantic relationship, which is quickly dismissed. The conversation then shifts to an interaction with someone who works at the establishment, leading to a tense moment where the worker is told to leave them alone. The worker makes inappropriate comments about sexual assault and gratitude, which are met with strong opposition and threats of violence from the conversing pair. The conversation moves to the topic of books, with one person expressing disinterest in reading, particularly fantasy genres like Harry Potter. This leads to a discussion about the content of Harry Potter books and why some might find them relatable or uninteresting. The conversation takes a crude turn, comparing the lack of sexual content in the books to real-life experiences. There's a brief mention of making lampshades, possibly as a dark joke. The discussion shifts to fashion, specifically purple jeans that cost $200. This leads to a conversation about having multiple jobs and prioritizing work. One person mentions selling cough medicine to middle schoolers as heroin, likely in jest. They discuss the challenges of their current job, including issues with punctuality and the manager's complaints. There's mention of a new boyfriend who is older and financially well off, sparking a debate about the role of money in relationships and how men communicate their feelings. The conversation turns to celebrity admiration, specifically for Ryan Sheckler, an X Games gold medalist. They debate the merits of his TV show, leading to a comparison with anime. The discussion briefly touches on McDonald's cartoon characters before abruptly shifting to a more serious tone about respecting women. One person attempts to apologize for past high school awkwardness and confesses to being a secret admirer. The conversation takes an uncomfortable turn as they express their attraction, focusing particularly on feet. The conversation becomes increasingly uncomfortable as one person offers money for a foot-related activity. They negotiate a price and location, settling on $200 and the Starbucks restroom. The person making the offer reveals they've done this before, with other girls at the mall. They discuss the logistics of the arrangement, including buying coffee beforehand. The conversation becomes more tense as one person expresses discomfort and makes insulting comments about the other's appearance and behavior. The uncomfortable interaction continues with unwanted compliments and physical contact related to feet. One person tries to set boundaries, which are repeatedly crossed. There's mention of an online community focused on this interest. The conversation ends abruptly as one person expresses hope that they're not late for work. The scene shifts to a work environment where one person is reprimanded for being late multiple times and is fired. There's discussion about an uncomfortable manager who touches employees inappropriately. The fired employee considers lying about being robbed to excuse their lateness. The conversation ends with a brief, hostile interaction with a customer. The scene changes to a conversation between a parent and child about financial responsibilities and job performance. The parent shares advice about customer service based on their past experience working in a diner. They emphasize the importance of smiling, being friendly, making small talk, and adhering to the customer is always right philosophy. The conversation reveals tension in the family dynamic, with the parent making disparaging comments about the child's mother. The conversation begins with a discussion about job hunting. One person mentions visiting multiple places to apply for jobs, while simultaneously using the opportunity to steal items. They specifically mention stealing a demo iPod from Best Buy, with plans to sell it on eBay. The idea of stealing and selling items on eBay as a consistent job is briefly entertained, noting the potential for high profit margins due to zero cost of goods. The dialogue shifts to discussing various job options, including working at Rainforest Cafe. One individual expresses a preference for jobs that don't require much mental effort, allowing for easy transitions between positions without consequences. The scene changes to a transaction between two individuals for a specific service. They discuss location preferences, settling on a bathroom at Lens Crafters. The client shares personal information about their father's teasing remarks regarding their inability to meet girls. The service provider reassures the client, stating that their current interaction counts as meeting a girl, even if payment is involved. The conversation delves into the service provider's background, revealing how they became involved in their current line of work. The discussion touches on the void left by friends moving away for college, and how this particular service helps fill that emptiness. The client expresses interest in purchasing shoes for the service provider, and they negotiate additional services for extra payment. The dialogue shifts to a discussion about substance use and partying. One individual mentions their desire to party excessively and die young, while the other suggests the need for a backup plan and going to college. The conversation then moves to a new setting, where a father and daughter discuss the daughter's apparent financial success and responsible bill-paying habits. The father-daughter conversation continues, with the father expressing pride in his daughter's achievements. He mentions his need to avoid stress due to potential health issues. The daughter agrees to pay additional bills, including one for the Food Network. The interaction becomes tense when the father uses derogatory language about the mother and threatens physical violence, causing the daughter to apologize and comply with his demands. The scene changes to a shopping trip at Kmart. Two individuals discuss their purchases, including stuffed animals and t-shirts. One person plans to customize the shirts with designs and text. The conversation then turns to questioning the source of one individual's income, as their spending seems inconsistent with a typical retail job. This leads to the revelation of a unique source of income. It is revealed that one person earns money by allowing clients to step on their feet. They explain that clients pay for this service due to submissive tendencies. The other individual expresses interest in participating in this work for financial gain. However, the first person is reluctant to share the opportunity, citing their own financial needs. The conversation becomes heated as they debate the nature of the footstepping service. One person argues that it must involve sexual gratification for the clients, while the service provider maintains that they cannot control what clients do afterward. The discussion escalates into an argument about respect and the definition of sex work. The scene shifts to an interaction between a client and the service provider. The client compliments the provider's feet and nail polish. The conversation takes an uncomfortable turn when the client asks inappropriate questions about lactation and pregnancy. The provider sets boundaries and informs the client about additional costs for certain actions. The client expresses strong feelings for the service provider, claiming to be in love. They discuss the possibility of the client paying extra to think about the provider during private moments. The interaction concludes with the client praising the provider and agreeing to financial terms for additional services. A disturbing late-night encounter occurs between two individuals. One person, identified as Jecka, is confronted by someone seeking foot-related services. The encounter escalates with increasingly uncomfortable offers and requests, highlighting issues of boundaries, consent, and personal safety. The situation underscores the potential dangers of online interactions and the importance of maintaining personal boundaries. The conversation takes an unexpected turn, touching on pop culture references and personal relationships. There's a discussion about dating versus hanging out, revealing underlying tensions and uncertainties in their relationship. The dialogue reflects the complexities of modern dating and the blurred lines between friendship and romance, especially among young adults navigating social interactions. The dialogue shifts to workplace experiences, touching on issues of homophobia and discrimination. There's a comparison of different retail environments and their treatment of LGBTQ+ employees. The conversation highlights the ongoing struggles faced by LGBTQ+ individuals in the workplace and the difficult choices they sometimes have to make between financial stability and personal authenticity. The conversation takes a dark turn, touching on mental health issues and suicidal thoughts. There's a sudden shift in mood, with one person expressing discomfort and mentioning a trigger response to male interaction. This segment highlights the prevalence of mental health struggles among young adults and the impact of workplace stress on overall well-being. The dialogue becomes increasingly confrontational, with accusations of inappropriate behavior and moral judgments being thrown around. The conversation reflects deep-seated tensions and unresolved issues between the individuals, possibly stemming from past events or rumors circulating in their social circle. This segment underscores the volatility of young adult relationships and the damaging impact of gossip and unverified accusations. The scene shifts to a community youth counseling session. The client discusses their family situation, including parental divorce and financial struggles. There are concerning mentions of threats and inappropriate behavior from the father. This segment highlights the impact of family dysfunction on young adults and the importance of accessible mental health resources for vulnerable youth. The counseling session continues, revealing the client's involvement in sex work, specifically foot-related services. The client expresses mixed feelings about their work, citing financial pressures and family obligations as motivating factors. This part of the conversation underscores the complex reasons why some young people may turn to sex work and the emotional toll it can take. The counseling session takes an unexpected turn when the counselor reacts negatively to learning about the client's income from sex work. This interaction highlights the potential for judgment and misunderstanding, even in professional settings designed to offer support. It also raises questions about the accessibility and effectiveness of mental health services. The scene shifts back to a late-night encounter with multiple individuals seeking foot-related services from Jecka. The situation becomes increasingly tense and uncomfortable, highlighting the potential dangers and emotional toll of sex work. This segment underscores the complex dynamics between sex workers and their clients, as well as the lack of safety and protection in unregulated forms of sex work. A dramatic confrontation unfolds, revealing a deeply disturbing situation involving family members. The dialogue touches on themes of exploitation, desperation, and the lasting impact of childhood experiences on adult behavior. The conversation begins with a discussion about insecurity and feet. One person mentions needing medication for every client due to shaking feet, while another talks about getting name-brand medication from a pharmacist. The dialogue then shifts to a seemingly submissive interaction between Jeffrey and two women, who are encouraging him to focus on feet rather than societal norms. The women appear to be manipulating Jeffrey, referring to him as "mommy's piggy," and making degrading comments about his interests in video games and anime. The women continue to manipulate Jeffrey, now encouraging him to steal from various stores. They specifically mention stealing cough medicine from Walgreens, with the intention of making Jeffrey consume an entire bottle. The conversation shifts to a discussion about an unpaid power bill, revealing financial struggles. One of the women mentions changes at work affecting her income. The dialogue then takes on a series of foot-related puns and metaphors, discussing job situations and opportunities. The conversation moves to a critique of patriotic white men and their attempts at quirkiness. One woman mentions a past marriage proposal involving a quartz ring. The dialogue then reveals tension between the two women, as one accuses the other of seeing clients without her knowledge, potentially affecting her income. The discussion turns to Jeffrey again, with one woman describing how she manipulated him into performing a degrading act with a homeless person. They express a lack of concern for Jeffrey's well-being. The women discuss purchasing alcohol without proper identification, relying on the store clerk's preferences. The conversation then shifts to a website that rates women's feet, with one woman discovering she's ranked highly. They learn that someone named Nicole has recently joined the site and is also highly ranked. The dialogue continues with more foot-related activities and a brief phone call attempt. The scene changes to a party setting where one woman is pressuring the other to drink more alcohol and take various medications. At the party, one woman continues to pressure the other to consume more alcohol and drugs, using manipulative language and false promises of intimacy. The situation escalates as the manipulated person is given a dangerous combination of substances. The scene abruptly changes when another person arrives, discovering an unconscious individual on the floor. It's revealed that the unconscious person has been given a lethal combination of rum, Ambien, and Xanax. The newcomer expresses shock and concern, while the person responsible shows a disturbing lack of empathy, focusing instead on the potential loss of income from the situation. A tense situation unfolds as two individuals debate whether to call 911 for someone named Jeffrey, who appears to be in medical distress. One person urges calling for help, while the other adamantly refuses, fearing legal consequences. The refusal stems from concerns about potential jail time if Jeffrey survives and tells a different story. The person opposing the 911 call suggests waiting for the body to decompose, allowing them to claim they found him in that state. The conversation continues with accusations about responsibility for Jeffrey's condition, mentioning a Xanax prescription. One individual insists that if they face consequences, both will be implicated. The situation escalates with threats of phone destruction and contemplation of the moral dilemma at hand. The narrator reflects on the surreal nature of the experience, likening it to a familiar scenario despite its gravity. The narrative shifts to a broader societal observation about reactions to drug overdoses at parties. It highlights the stark contrast between reactions of affluent and underprivileged youth. Those from wealthier backgrounds tend to advocate for calling emergency services, while those from less privileged areas often prioritize avoiding potential legal trouble over immediate medical intervention. The narrator contemplates the morality of Nicole's actions, initially viewing them as manipulative, but later considering the positive outcomes. They ceased taking clients after this incident, recognizing the dangers of their previous lifestyle. The narrator ponders whether Nicole's actions, though unintentional, ultimately saved their life by ending their dangerous behavior. Despite the negative perception of Nicole, the narrator acknowledges her role as a necessary, albeit controversial, figure in their life trajectory. A confrontation occurs between two individuals discussing a foot-related interest. One person attempts to defend their preference as non-sexual, claiming it stems from a desire for comfort and maternal care. The other person strongly disagrees, labeling it as inappropriate and sexual. The conversation becomes increasingly hostile, with personal insults exchanged. The dialogue highlights societal judgments on unconventional interests and the challenges of expressing them in public spaces. The conversation takes a darker turn, as one individual expresses frustration over rejection, while the other responds with harsh criticism about physical appearance and social skills. The dialogue touches on themes of self-worth, societal expectations, and the complexities of human attraction. It concludes with a nihilistic exchange about the purpose of life, showcasing the emotional toll of repeated social rejection and misunderstanding. The scene shifts to a workplace setting, where an individual discovers they've been fired. The reasons for termination range from a misunderstanding about work schedules to more serious allegations of inappropriate behavior by a manager. The conversation reveals tensions in the workplace, including issues of customer service expectations and resource management. The fired employee expresses frustration with the job and claims to have another opportunity lined up. A new employee is being trained at a retail store, with emphasis placed on customer service and patience. The trainer attempts to demonstrate proper interaction with customers, but the scenario quickly devolves into an uncomfortable exchange with a difficult customer. This interaction highlights the challenges of retail work and the gap between idealized customer service expectations and reality. The retail scenario continues with the arrival of suspicious individuals posing as mall security. They use coded language, possibly attempting to identify undercover staff or engage in illicit activities. The employees navigate this awkward situation, maintaining their cover as regular store workers. This segment illustrates the unpredictable nature of retail work and the potential risks faced by employees. A series of disjointed interactions occur, including a confusing exchange about a potential assassination plot, reflections on political voting, and random thoughts about celebrities. The narrative then abruptly shifts to a domestic scene where a father introduces his new partner to his daughter. The situation becomes complicated when it's revealed that the new partner is actually a peer of the daughter, leading to tension and awkward family dynamics. The setting returns to the retail store, where a customer engages in inappropriate behavior, making personal comments about an employee's appearance. The employee skillfully navigates the uncomfortable situation, demonstrating the challenges faced by retail workers in handling unwanted attention. The scene touches on themes of workplace harassment and the complexities of customer interactions in a retail environment. Two employees are searching for a way to contact corporate about their paychecks. They explore the break room, finding only menus and old contact forms. They discover information about an adult video branch of their company, FYE, located in a less desirable part of Springfield. Despite initial hesitation about visiting a porn store, they decide it's better than doing nothing and leave their post, reasoning that business is slow anyway. Upon arriving at the adult video store, they encounter their school counselor working there. He explains that some educators take summer jobs. The counselor hints at the store's unique offerings, suggesting they have access to content not readily available online. He mentions a secret warehouse where only elite corporate members congregate, implying this is where their special inventory is kept. The counselor refuses to disclose the warehouse location without incentive. After some negotiation, he provides a cryptic riddle about the warehouse's location, describing it as a rarity, like a city of crystals, not seen through, but seen under. The employees leave, frustrated by the puzzle and their unsuccessful attempt to locate their paychecks. The group debates the meaning of the riddle while driving to the metro station. They discuss the challenges of their job at FYE and the limited employment options available to them. At the station, they notice Crystal City on the map, which aligns with the riddle they received. Despite some reservations, they decide to investigate this lead. On the metro, they encounter their former teacher, Mr. Colby, who makes inappropriate comments. They arrive at Crystal City and explore an unusual mall filled with dated and specific stores. The underground nature of the mall seems to fit the riddle's description. They search for clues to the warehouse's location among the strange assortment of shops. As they continue exploring the underground mall, they note the bizarrely specific stores and lack of popular brands. The environment feels like a retail twilight zone, with stores that seem to survive on minimal customers. Their frustration grows as they struggle to find any sign of the warehouse or their paychecks. The search becomes increasingly hopeless, leading to doubts about the counselor's honesty and the existence of the warehouse. One employee expresses a desire to quit, while the other tries to maintain focus on their goal. The conversation shifts to the challenges of their current employment situation and the limited options available to them. Two individuals explore a mysterious location, encountering graffiti that resembles an FYE logo. They discover a locked entrance requiring a unique key, which surprisingly matches one of their manager's tags. Upon turning the key, they gain access to an extensive, alphabetized collection of illegal pornographic material. The enormity and nature of the content shock them, particularly the presence of child pornography. They speculate about the business hours and operations of such an illicit enterprise. The pair contemplate stealing cash and quitting their jobs, justifying it due to the illegal nature of their surroundings. Unexpectedly, they encounter someone who claims to work there and explains the importance of the warehouse in maintaining societal stability. This person suggests that without access to such material, various professions would struggle to function normally. The newcomer dismisses conventional therapy as a solution, promoting their enterprise as parallel to government importance. The situation escalates as the FBI intervenes, revealing they had been attempting to infiltrate the operation. The agents view the discovery as a significant find, referring to it as a treasure sought after for decades. The scene takes a dark turn as the FBI suggests handing over one of the individuals to the Taliban, implying a cover-up. This leads to a recollection of being sold into slavery, experiencing human trafficking across various countries, and enduring exploitation for an extended period. The narrative shifts to a school setting where students are caught smoking in a restricted area. They attempt to manipulate a male teacher into allowing them to finish their cigarettes, but face stricter consequences from a female teacher. The students discuss the effectiveness of manipulating authority figures based on gender. A confrontation occurs between students, with one threatening violence, resulting in a referral to the school therapist. The students speculate about the new therapist's background and intentions. A seminar on bullying is introduced, with a new instructor filling in for the usual health teacher. The instructor discusses the increase in bullying incidents over the past decade and attempts to engage students in understanding the severity of the issue. However, the students respond with sarcasm and continue to exhibit bullying behavior, demonstrating the challenges in addressing the problem effectively. The instructor provides statistics on bullying frequency, but the students mock the information and persist in their behavior. The scene transitions to students discussing personal issues, including stalking and parental pressure for college admissions. Their conversation is interrupted by continued bullying incidents, with students targeting each other based on appearance and possessions. The situation escalates when a student on a scooter is deliberately tripped, resulting in a potential leg injury. The bullies initially mock the victim's pain, but the severity of the situation becomes apparent. The instructor intervenes, recognizing the need for more drastic measures to address the pervasive bullying problem in the school. A group of students discuss the new anti-bullying mandates at their school. They express skepticism about the effectiveness of these rules and make cynical remarks about the administration's efforts. The conversation shifts to assigned seating for lunch, with the students wondering who else might be seated at their table. They speculate about potentially uncomfortable seating arrangements and make inappropriate jokes about school staff. A student named Jeffrey joins the group, intending to draw fan art of a character named Hikari-chan from a manga series. The other students react with a mix of discomfort and curiosity. They question Jeffrey about the character and the manga, making comments about the sexualized portrayal of the character. The discussion touches on themes of over-sexualization in anime and manga, particularly concerning underage characters. The conversation continues about the manga character Hikari-chan. Jeffrey defends the character's portrayal and backstory, while the other students criticize the sexualization of a 13-year-old character. They debate the ethics of such depictions in fiction and the motivations behind creating these characters. The discussion then shifts to pop culture references and television shows, with the students expressing varying opinions on cartoons and adult-oriented animated series. The students' conversation takes a dark turn as they discuss inappropriate relationships and online behavior. They make concerning remarks about interacting with minors online and joke about potential legal consequences. The topic then shifts to an upcoming Marilyn Manson concert, with the students planning to attend and potentially use drugs. They discuss the appeal of rock star personas and the problematic aspects of celebrity worship. The conversation is interrupted by the arrival of police, who have a warrant to search the residence. The students continue their discussion about the concert and their desire for VIP access. They express disappointment about their seating arrangements and discuss potential ways to get noticed by the performer. The police arrest someone for alleged crimes involving minors, while the students continue their conversation, seemingly unfazed by the events unfolding around them. The scene shifts to a classroom setting where a teacher is discussing civil rights history. A student questions the teacher's use of racial slurs when quoting historical texts. The teacher dismisses the concern and asks a student named Jecka to stay after class. In a private conversation, the teacher expresses concern about the student's declining performance and behavior. The student, attempting to deflect, makes inappropriate advances towards the teacher, who unexpectedly responds positively. The teacher and student continue their inappropriate conversation, planning a dinner date. The student attempts to manipulate the situation to improve their grades and obtain cigarettes. The scene then shifts to a conversation between students after class, where one reveals the uncomfortable interaction with the teacher. They discuss the ethical implications and potential consequences of such a relationship, while also planning for an upcoming concert. The students debate whether to attend the concert or go to dinner with the teacher. They weigh the potential academic consequences against their desire to attend the event. The conversation touches on themes of responsibility, peer pressure, and the misuse of authority. They ultimately decide to go to the concert, planning to make amends with the teacher later. The discussion concludes with plans to purchase drugs before the event. The conversation begins with a discussion about limited career options for certain individuals, suggesting that selling drugs or working at carnivals are common choices. The scene then shifts to a person rushing to their job at Domino's, highlighting the potential dangers of delivering food to strangers' houses. There's a humorous exchange about a regular customer who repeatedly orders chicken kickers, with speculation about their motives. The dialogue moves to a debate about attending a Marilyn Manson concert instead of school, or dating an older person. The speakers discuss the physical exertion involved in concert attendance, jokingly attributing it to dancing while on ecstasy. They express excitement about the concert experience, including the possibility of becoming intoxicated. The conversation continues at the concert venue, where the attendees realize they're watching an opening act rather than Marilyn Manson. They discuss their plans to use drugs, revealing that their original supplier is unavailable due to legal troubles. As an alternative, they decide to use over-the-counter medications like Robitussin and Benadryl to achieve a high, acknowledging that it might intensify the concert experience. The group is confronted by someone questioning their presence at the concert and their authenticity as Marilyn Manson fans. They defend themselves by claiming they attend concerts even when sick, using their consumption of cough syrup as evidence. The conversation then shifts to speculation about a character's sexual orientation, with a generalization made about white girls being either gay or racist. The scene changes to a confrontation between a parent and child about attending a concert and failing a history exam. The parent threatens consequences and insists on the child getting a job. The child, still under the influence of drugs, experiences hallucinations and confusion during this interaction. In a drug-induced state, Jecka has a surreal conversation with a hallucinated entity called the Hat Man. They discuss methods of killing and critique capitalist practices, particularly focusing on fast food advertising. The conversation takes a dark turn as the entity expresses a desire to make Jecka commit suicide. The dialogue shifts to a discussion about the difficulties of finding employment and the perceived unfairness of being forced to work. They critique the education system and its relation to future careers, expressing disillusionment with the prospects of certain professions like medicine. The conversation reflects on societal expectations and gender roles. The scene moves to a job interview at Hot Topic. The applicant discusses their qualifications and expresses a strong desire for the position. However, they face discrimination based on their appearance, as the store seeks employees who fit a specific alternative aesthetic. The applicant argues against this policy, citing their personal struggles as evidence of their suitability for the role. The conversation returns to the protagonists, who have undergone physical changes to fit into the alternative scene. They discuss the impact of their new appearance on social interactions and dating expectations. The dialogue touches on issues of self-esteem and the complexities of presenting oneself in different social contexts. The scene opens at a party where attendees discuss music choices and their reasons for being there. One person expresses disinterest in the host, Kyler, while another admits to seeking intoxication. The conversation shifts to DMT, a psychoactive compound. The legal drinking age is critiqued with a suggestion that it should be lower to avoid such situations. The party atmosphere seems lackluster, with complaints about the music selection and low attendance. The host offers a special whiskey, touting its quality and smooth taste due to its Nebraska corn base. However, the guests seem uninterested in the whiskey's pedigree, focusing solely on its intoxicating effects. The conversation takes a turn towards conspiracy theories, with one person claiming that government means mind control in Latin. An unwanted romantic advance is made and firmly rejected, leading to a hostile exchange. The rejected individual finds solace in their job, viewing it as a means to enhance their drinking experience. The party continues with increasing levels of intoxication. One attendee expresses a desire to leave to avoid potential sexual assault. There's a discussion about drunk driving, with some cavalier attitudes displayed towards the risks involved. The conversation carouses Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MADD, suggesting its members are unattractive and inexperienced with parties. Despite acknowledging the dangers, one person decides to drive while intoxicated, inviting another to join them and suggesting a stop at McDonald's. The scene shifts to a confrontation between a parent and their intoxicated child who has returned home late. The parent expresses anger and disappointment over the child's state and behavior, particularly their decision to drive while drunk. The child attempts to deflect and justify their actions, leading to a heated argument. The parents' concerns about the party attendees hint at underlying prejudices. The exchange highlights the strained relationship and differing perspectives on responsibility and freedom between the parent and child. The conversation continues with discussions about evading breathalyzer tests and determining when one might be sober enough to drive. There's a confrontation with another individual, Hunter, who is told to leave. The party progresses with increasing intoxication and destructive behavior, including punching holes in walls. The arrival of the police is announced, causing panic among the attendees. Despite the obvious risks, one heavily intoxicated individual insists on driving to escape the situation. The scene depicts a dangerous drunk driving situation, with the driver making erratic decisions and nearly causing accidents. The conversation touches on fast food cravings and the relative popularity of different chains. The situation takes a tragic turn when the drunk driver crashes into another vehicle, resulting in a fatality. The driver attempts to rationalize and minimize their responsibility for the accident, blaming various external factors and their own circumstances. The narrative jumps to a conversation about concert plans and relationship issues. One person expresses frustration over not being able to attend a Marilyn Manson concert due to an ultimatum. The discussion reveals difficulties in making friends and maintaining healthy relationships. The scene then shifts to an inappropriate date between a student and a teacher at Olive Garden, highlighting the power imbalance and ethical concerns of such a relationship. The student attempts to negotiate better grades in exchange for the date. The next scene involves a conversation between a parent and child about academic progress. The parent expresses satisfaction with the child's improved performance in AP History. The dialogue touches on the topic of anti-bullying rules in schools, with the parent suggesting that bullying builds character and prepares children for the real world. The child disagrees, stating that the rules primarily prevent the use of homophobic language. The conversation ends abruptly as the child prepares to go out, leading to parental concern about their activities. A father-daughter interaction reveals the father's overprotective and controlling nature. He expresses concern about his daughter potentially dating and makes an inappropriate comment about pregnancy. The daughter assures him she's not seeing anyone. The father's attitude suggests a desire for more control over his daughter's life and choices. The scene transitions to a classroom setting where a teacher named Mr. Katz is discussing historical events, including the Chinese Exclusion Act. Katz's teaching methods are questionable, as he uses explicit language and racial slurs in his lecture. The classroom discussion continues, with Mr. Katz defending his use of offensive language as necessary for historical accuracy. A student questions Katz about a supposed outing to Olive Garden, causing him to become flustered and provide an unconvincing explanation. This interaction hints at a potentially inappropriate relationship between Katz and a student. The scene shifts to a private conversation between Katz and Jecka, where they discuss keeping their arrangement discreet. The student's behavior suggests she may be manipulating the situation for better grades. The conversation between Katz and Jecka continues, revealing a disturbing dynamic. Katz suggests dinner at Joe's Crab Shack, which the student reluctantly agrees to in exchange for extra credit. Katz's behavior becomes increasingly inappropriate, using childish language and suggesting ice cream as a reward. Jecka seems to be tolerating this behavior for academic benefits. The scene then shifts to a discussion about Dungeons & Dragons, D&D, between two different characters. One explains D&D as a hobby, primarily enjoyed by a specific demographic, sharing a personal experience of encountering the game in a mall. The conversation about D&D leads to a revelation about a student's involvement with multiple teachers, including Jeffrey. This disclosure shocks the listener, who suggests seeking help from the school therapist. The student dismisses this idea, expressing skepticism about therapy's effectiveness. The scene then changes to an outing in Georgetown between a teacher and student. The teacher explains choosing this location to avoid recognition, highlighting the inappropriate nature of their relationship. The student expresses discomfort with the expensive setting, leading to tension between them. The therapy session continues with the student asking about prioritizing current happiness versus future success. The therapist's non-committal response frustrates the student. The conversation takes a disturbing turn when the student asks about a partner's interest in childish behavior, raising serious ethical concerns. The scene shifts to a father-daughter interaction where the father expresses pride in his daughter's academic achievements. The daughter contemplates revealing her true situation, but refrains when her father expresses extreme views on the importance of college education and success. The story moves to a scene with students smoking, joined by a suspicious individual claiming to be a teacher. The students question his legitimacy, but end up buying cigarettes from him. The conversation reveals the complexities of student-teacher relationships and the potential dangers lurking in the school environment. One student mentions needing to meet someone for a concert, while the other expresses concern about an ongoing inappropriate relationship with a teacher. They discuss the challenges of ending such a relationship and the potential consequences. The next scene returns to the inappropriate student-teacher relationship. The teacher offers to improve the student's grades in exchange for wearing childish outfits in public, revealing the exploitative nature of their dynamic. The student questions why the teacher wants her to act like a child, while the teacher deflects by questioning why she seeks higher grades without doing the work. This exchange highlights the toxic power imbalance and manipulation present in their relationship. The teacher reprimands the student for being careless about keeping their relationship secret, mentioning issues like using obvious contact names. The student is reminded to be obedient and not question the teacher's demands. The teacher promises to improve the student's grade in exchange for wearing a specific shirt to class, despite the student's hesitation about its childish design. The scene shifts to a therapy session where the student discusses their difficult home life. They describe feeling caught between an abusive relationship and a father who is never satisfied. The student expresses concern about their father's potential reaction if he discovered their current relationship. The therapist asks probing questions, trying to understand the full picture of the student's family dynamics and relationships. The conversation takes a shocking turn as the student reveals they are dating their history teacher, Mr. Katz, to avoid failing the class. The student expresses fear of expulsion, academic failure, and physical abuse from their father if they don't maintain this relationship. The therapist, bound by confidentiality, struggles to respond appropriately to this revelation. The student becomes agitated, emphasizing the perceived necessity of continuing this inappropriate relationship to maintain their GPA and avoid their father's wrath. The student becomes increasingly distressed, lashing out at the therapist and questioning their understanding of the situation. They express feeling trapped, forced to act childishly to satisfy their teacher's inappropriate desires. The student abruptly ends the session, dismissing the therapist's attempts to discuss coping mechanisms. The scene changes to a conversation between the student and a friend named Nicole. Nicole suggests skipping class and buying cigarettes, but the student declines, citing a lack of motivation. This leads to an argument about priorities in friendships. Nicole issues an ultimatum, forcing the student to choose between their friendship and other social connections. The student is left conflicted and anxious about potentially losing Nicole as a friend. The narrative returns to the therapy setting. The therapist convinces the student to return and speak with someone else, revealed to be a police officer. The student becomes upset, feeling betrayed by the therapist for reporting their situation. They express fear about never passing their class and the potential consequences of this revelation. The scene then shifts to the student's home, where they attempt to preemptively explain the situation to their father. The confrontation with the student's father turns violent. The father, having received a call from the school, is furious about the relationship with the history teacher. The student tries to deny it, but is met with threats of physical violence. Terrified, the student flees, desperately seeking a place to hide. The narrative jumps forward in time. The student is now dealing with a new history teacher and discussing assignment submissions. They express cynicism about their academic future and struggle to connect with new classmates. The conversation reveals that a significant event, possibly Nicole's death, has occurred, deeply affecting the student. In another therapy session, the student expresses frustration and anger at how quickly life seems to have moved on after Nicole's death. They feel that no one truly cares about their suffering or the lasting impact of recent traumatic events. The therapist attempts to provide perspective, but the student remains convinced of their isolation and the indifference of others to their pain. The student continues to express their disillusionment with the world and people around them. They recount their traumatic experiences, including being molested by a teacher and losing a friend to suicide, emphasizing how little seems to have changed in the aftermath. The conversation ends on a bleak note, with the student feeling permanently altered by their experiences while the world moves on, seemingly uncaring. The final segment presents a philosophical monologue questioning the existence and role of God in human suffering. It posits that humans use the concept of God to deflect blame for their own choices and actions. The speaker challenges the listener to take responsibility for their life circumstances and make changes, rather than attributing everything to a higher power. The monologue concludes with a farewell to the concept of God, suggesting a shift towards self-reliance and personal accountability.